The ball is in your court, Steve.
All right, thanks. Thanks very much. I'll allow my colleague to start with the presentation.
All right. Good evening, cherished listeners, viewers, as well as the students and then the general public. We are most grateful for such an opportunity once again. The last time we were here was last week. Yeah. And we are here to have a radio lecture on the course EDCR 111, the school curriculum, social change, and national development. To do the honors today is myself, Ms. MIRIAM of the Department of Educational Foundations, Faculty of Educational Studies, and
Stephen Kwachi APAU.
Okay, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, a big thanks goes to the technical team for the wonderful work you're doing. We're going to have the lecture for about 30 to 40 minutes, after which the phone lines will be activated so that dear students, you can phone in and seek for clarifications, ask questions, whether there are any. And so you can reach us on the various social media handles. We are live on Facebook, and the handle is Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM, Twitter at WINNEBA 983 FM, Instagram WINNEBA 98.3 FM, YouTube Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM. You can also send us your text messages and WhatsApp via the lines 0503 923158, 0503 923158, and 0332 320201, 0332 3202 and 01. Okay, so I keep reminding our dear students that it is important that you save the numbers on your contact list so that whenever the lines are activated, you can quickly do that. Today we're going to have a discussion, a lecture on the criteria for the selection of the various components of the curriculum. Last 2 weeks, we began by looking at the components of the curriculum. And we did identify that basically at our level, we are considering 4 basic elements or components of the curriculum. We identified the statement of purpose, which outlines the aims, goals, and objectives. We also mentioned that another component of the curriculum has to do with the content or subject matter. The third element is that of the learning experiences, and then finally we have evaluation. We also proceeded during the face-to-face to have a discussion around the various models of curriculum development. So we considered that of Tyler, Taba, and then Wheeler. Having gone through this week we're going to look at the criteria for the selection of the various elements or components of the curriculum. Now that we know we have 4 parts, and we're going to look at the criteria, the principles, the standards, what we consider when selecting what goes into the statement of purpose or aims, goals, objectives, what goes into the selection of the subject matter, learning experiences, and then evaluation. And so, my dear students, if you just joined us, this is Radio WINNEBA. We are having a radio lecture on the course EDCR 111, the school curriculum, social change, and the national development. The topic for today is on the criteria for selection of objectives and then content. And so we begin. We are going to begin with the objectives. My colleague, and so Mr. APAU, when we talk about objectives, as far as the selection of the components of curriculum is concerned, I think our students should be familiar with the term before we look at the criteria in the selection. So can you explain to us for their level?
Okay, I believe in the past weeks we've talked a lot about objectives, aims, goals, objectives. it's just the targets that teachers set for their lessons. So
Sure.
once a teacher is going to class, the teacher set a certain standard that after the class has ended, whatever he wishes the students would be able to do.
To do.
That becomes our objective. It is, however, important for us to clarify that in the new curriculum, the standard based curriculum, we don't have objectives, but rather we refer to them as performance indicators.
Sure.
So once they pick the new curriculum and they don't see objectives, it doesn't necessarily mean that these days teachers don't set targets.
Sure.
Teachers still do set targets. However, I believe by next week we will start talking about the standard-based curriculum and we will explain more. But basically, the target that we set for our lesson. So when you state by the end of the lesson, the child should be able to. That is what we refer to as objective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was an excellent one there for the level of consumption. At least it's within the level of consumption of our learners that the targets we set at the end of the lesson. So you're going to teach for an hour or two. What do you wish to achieve at the end of the instructional session? That is great one there. As students, we should don't forget the fact that when we're looking at the models, we did mention that Tyler identified some 3 sources of educational, in this case, objectives. We made mention of the learner, the subject specialist, and then the contemporary life outside the society, that is outside the school, that is the society. We should also remember the fact that we discussed that there are types of educational purposes. So for purposes of this lecture, so we need to make our dear students understand that we have types of educational purposes, or the aims, the goals and objectives. And with this, I think when we were here to discuss the characteristics of the curriculum, we did mention that every curriculum is holistic in nature, such that it will lead to the total development of the learner. And so in the selection of objectives, in the selection of what we wish to achieve at the end of the instructional session, it is important that the objectives we set cover both the cognitive, the affective, and then the psychomotor, the head, the heart, the hand, the intellectual, the emotional, as well as the physical being of the learner, so that at the end of the day, having gone through the course, the student will be able to develop fully in terms of his intellectual ability, physical ability, and then emotional ability. And so with this, let's move straight to the point. Criteria. I'm sure that if we should ask our students to identify some of the standards that they have set for themselves as far as the programs they are reading is concerned, they will be able to mention or outline some few. And so criteria for the selection of objectives. What is the first thing that we need to consider as a criteria when formulating instructional objectives?
And so before we even come to the specifics, our students have to understand that when we say criteria, I believe they all bought forms before they came to the school.
Sure.
Some of them were admitted, others were not admitted. Meaning that a certain standard, you have to meet a certain standard before you are admitted. That becomes the criteria for admission into the university. The same way, if we are going to class and we say we have to set a target for which our students should be able to achieve at the end of the teaching and learning enterprise, then the objectives that we formulate should also meet a certain criteria. And so I'll leave it with you whilst you control, and then I'll come in.
All right, sure. So to take it right from there, what we put in place in order to achieve the objectives. And so we believe that this is a tutorial we're having. And
yes.
So our students at this level have some fair knowledge about what we're talking about.
Of course.
Okay. And so first of all, Last week we did mention that when we're looking at the models of curriculum development, and so Tyler, Taba, Wheeler, we saw that Tyler tried to um, define types of objectives, and so ultimate, mediate, in that order. Now it is important that since objectives are deduced from goals and the goals are also deduced from aims, whatever objective we set in the classroom, we should check and make sure that it falls in line with the general aim of education. And so first of all, we will say that a criterion to consider when selecting educational objectives is the fact that that objective should align with the aims, the general aims of the curriculum. Yeah. And so for instance, we could have an aim like one of the aims, or
Students
okay,
should show, um, should exhibit the element of cultural diversity.
yeah,
So if that is our aim, then of course, when you are going to teach social studies, for example, whatever you objective that you set should fall in line with this. And so you can't say, um, after the students have gone through the educational system, they should exhibit the traits of leadership, and then when you get to class you don't teach anything
and about leadership.
about leadership.
Yeah.
It would mean that even though you expect the students to become leaders, there is no way they will get there because their objective is not in line with their general aim.
Okay, yeah, that is excellent. And the point is that our students shouldn't forget the fact that these objectives we are talking about, we did mention that they are not things that um, the aims, they are not objectives, or they are not things you can easily attain at the end of an instructional session. So for the example you gave, students should be able to appreciate cultural diversity. You and I, as well as the students, will understand that a 1 hour or 2 period instructional session wouldn't be enough to lead to the attainment of that. And so we need to break down the aims into specific instructional objectives so that with time it will be achieved. Great. And so we have another criteria to consider when selecting instructional objectives, and this has to do with the fact that the objectives should be specific, or they should be precise, or they should be explicit. What should our students understand if we say instructional objectives should be specific, precise, or explicit?
Yes, let me start from this angle. You are going to teach, say, political government. You get to the classroom, and then you expect that by the end of the lesson the students should be able to mention the three arms of government. If you are stating your objectives and you state that by the end of the lesson the students should be able to mention the students should be able to mention the arms of government, the next question is that how many arms of government do you expect the students to be able to mention? You are going to teach English. By the end of the lesson, the child should be able to write a sentence. The lesson ends and the child writes, Jesus wept.
I had that in mind. I think we were all thinking.
It is still a sentence. But then, in your mind, you know you have simple sentences and we have complex sentences. So if your expectation is that by the end of the lesson, the child should be able to write one simple sentence and one complex sentence, you should be clear.
Yeah.
If not, you will set target that at the end of the day, sometimes it's the students would achieve it in the minds of the students. Yes, they've understood the lesson, but your target will not be achieved because you expected them to do more.
Sure.
Sometimes too, maybe you expected them to do less. So you have to be specific when you are stating your instructional objective.
Great, great. So if I heard you very well, in fact, we should avoid ambiguity
Vagueness.
in the statement of our instructional objectives.
Double barreled.
Yes, double. I mean, we should avoid all those things. In fact,
Akwasi did not buy the bread I asked him to buy. Whether it's still bread.
I saw a monkey on the way to Koforidia.
Yes.
And so you don't know whether the monkey was on the way to
Koforidia or you were on your way to.
Anyway, our cherished listeners, viewers, if you just joined us, this is Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM. We are live on the various social media handles, and we're having a discussion on the criteria for the selection of educational objectives and content or subject matter. And so you can send us your text messages on the lines, on the studio line 0503 923158, 0332 320201. So in the next 10 minutes, the phone lines will be activated so that you phone in to make contributions, ask questions, seek clarification.
And here, let's make it clear to our students that radio lecture is part of the classroom exercise.
Sure.
And so there are few students that I have identified based on their contributions in the radio lecture.
Sure.
And I won't mention the reward I have for them. It is just like teaching and students participating in the classroom.
Yeah.
So if you are there and you are not participating, that's fine. We will get there.
Yeah. And interestingly, you see, they will come without the excuse. Oh, the time that we come on radio, there are always our lectures. But the point is, you go to the lecture or ask them, and they have a recorded version of all the lectures we'll be having. So I think our dear students must take this exercise very serious. All right. And so we were on the fact that objectives need to be specific. Whatever you want to achieve at the end of the instructional session, if I just go straight to the point. And so by the end of the lesson, the student should be able to state Newton's 3 laws of motion straight. Don't leave it vague, so that the student will know that this and that is what is expected of him. The student is not familiar with the curriculum or the syllabus. You, the teacher, have it. So whatever you want to achieve, you have to make it clear. And this one is so connected to the criterion of measurability. Yeah, such that if you are specific in your objective, in terms of assessment, in terms of finding out whether you have achieved your objective or not, since you ask them to be able to state three of Newton's laws of motion at the end of the instructional session, you can quickly test their knowledge on that. All right. Okay, so let's look at the next criterion. Can we consider the criterion of feasibility? If we say the objective should be feasible, what do we want our students to understand by feasibility criterion?
Well, so you said you're going to teach a level. As for feasibility, there are so many areas that would either hamper the achievement of your objective.
Sure.
So it's all about achievability. How achievable is that target that you've set? Okay. Class 1, algebra. You have said that by the end of the lesson, the child would be able to calculate the sides of a circle. Knowing very well that a child at that age cannot do this.
Sure.
2, by the end of the lesson, the child should be able to write a book. Knowing very well that a lesson that is to be taught in 30 minutes cannot help a learner to write and publish a book.
Sure.
Irrespective of the level. Even at the PhD level, one lesson would not be enough to help you publish a book. And so, you, the teacher, also need to consider, do I have even the resources? Your own competence. Am I competent enough to teach this lesson within this 30 minutes? So you don't, because we said set target, you don't set a target that is beyond the age of the learners, the resources at your disposal,
sure,
your own competence, and the time that you may have. If you are selecting your purpose, you have to look at the time that you have. How many hours do I have to teach this lesson? You have to look at whether you even have the necessary materials to help. Yes. So if you say, oh, by the end of the lesson, the child should be able to draw the elephant and
label
the parts. Do you have the resources that would help the learner to draw the elephant and label the parts?
Okay.
Your own competence. Do you have the competence to even teach about an elephant within 2 hours? So that after the end, the students are or would be expected to demonstrate mastery of what you've taught.
Sure.
What age is the learner that you expect the learner to draw an elephant? I've always maintained class 1, when they are coming to school, they are crying. They are just coming to sleep.
They are being forced.
They are being forced to come to school. So when they come to school, that is not the time to use certain technical jargons and whatever.
And then
you will fail to achieve your target.
Sure.
So that's all about feasibility.
Feasibility. That was a great one there. So feasibility, yeah, like you said, are the resources there? So availability of resources vis-a-vis the time. So resources, both human, in terms of expertise, like you said, are you competent enough? So your expertise as well as the teaching learning materials. Here, we are not saying, our dear listeners, dear, especially the students, we are not saying that in instances where you have to implement an objective as indicated in the curriculum, you should say that, oh, the teaching learning materials are not there, so I'm not teaching it. That is not the point we are making. That is why we keep hearing improvisation. But the point is that you have to improvise with the right tools. So for instance, this is a tutorial. When we're having the face-to-face, there was this question that, so madam, in instances where the materials are not there, what do? You improvise. So can you draw? So we're talking about, let's say, preparation, laboratory preparation of acid-base titrations. And so one asks, like, I don't know, that is how I was taught in JHS, though I'm not saying it's the best. Laboratory preparation of gases, then they draw everything on the board for us. And so you also draw, and we prepare gases in the classroom. That is
in the exercise books.
I don't know whether you had. I'm talking about JHS.
No, mine was worse.
You also was worse. So, and I think our dear listeners also have their own experiences. Even to senior high school, integrated science, where there are practicals, and then what we write is test of practicals. So we write it on paper. And so you get to a physical science lab and you find it even difficult to identify some of these things. We have theorized things that are supposed to be practical. And so when this question came up, I told them that it's not a matter of drawing it on the board, saying that they are not there, you don't have them, so you are drawing it on the board. Arrange. Take the students to the nearest school where they have a well-resourced library. Organize. We have science resource centers here and there. So I wouldn't say that as students going through this course, when you go out there to the field and the teaching learning materials are not there, go and draw on the board. Do the right improvisation. So the point we are making is that feasibility criterion will only be satisfied when we have the resources as well as the time, given the time that we have. Okay, so at this point, I think that we can activate the phone lines whilst we continue with the others. If you just joined us, this is Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM. We're having a radio lecture on the course EDCR 111, the School Curriculum, Social Change and National Development. Today, we are doing the honors by discussing the criteria for the selection of objectives and content. So the studio lines are activated. You can call us or reach us on 0503 923158. You can as well as send your text messages and WhatsApp through those lines. Hello, dear caller. Your name and your department. Please, can you lower the volume of your radio set? It is giving us feedback.
Hello?
Yeah, hello. Please, your name and department.
Please. I'm Eric from High Tech Department.
Great, Eric.
Eric Kumi from my first department.
Eric, let's go.
Please, with the flexibility.
With the what? Sorry, with the what?
The criteria for the flexibility.
Please, we didn't say flexibility. We said feasibility. Feasible.
Okay, with the feasibility. Okay, with feasibility.
Great.
In case, as you know, the time is always limited, and the resources too are not. So, can't I begin with them, then give them as homework so that they can also go and continue?
You have stated that by the end of the lesson. You see? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Okay.
So we will attend to that. Can you give it to them as homework? Great. Okay, we will attend to that.
All right, let's run up on the criteria.
On the criteria. So we have the criteria of functionality and functionality appropriateness. I think that is the final two. We can link them and then.
Yeah, so with functionality and appropriateness, I think would that objective even benefit the learner in the first place?
Yeah.
You don't set objectives by the end of the lesson. The child should be able to identify a snow and do what. This is something that the child will not need now.
Sure.
Appropriateness, is the objective appropriate for the level it is intended?
Yeah.
So the child is in class 1, as we stated earlier. Class 1 child, what exactly is he or she expected to acquire at that grade level?
Okay, great. So functionality, just a little bit on that. The objective should be functional to the learner as well as the society, because we keep mentioning that the training we are receiving, the training we are giving, it is meant for us to go and serve the needs of society. And still on the characteristics of the curriculum, we mentioned that the societal needs is dynamic, and it is through the curriculum that, and so indeed, the objectives we serve, we should see that it satisfies the personal needs of the learner as well as the society. There should be that kind of balance. And so if you think that probably taking in smoking would... Okay, hello dear caller. Your name and your department.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your name, please. Please, can you position yourself very well? We are not getting you. Okay, I think he would have to call back. And so, like I was saying, if as an individual you feel that there is something that helps you to probably learn. Hello, dear caller. Yes, your name and your department.
My name is Raymond.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Radio WINNEBA. Yeah.
I'm about Tyler.
Tyler.
Yeah, Tyler models of curriculum.
Can you lower the volume of your radio set? Sure. Okay, so what has Tyler done?
He said that in stating the objectives.
Yeah, we are listening. Go
ahead. That we should clearly indicate the kind of behavior to be developed in the students. I understand that, and he added that, and the content of life to which the behavior is to be applied. That is where I don't understand.
Excuse me, take your time. And the what?
And the content of life to which the behavior is to be applied.
Okay, sure.
I need clarification on that.
Your department, please. Great. So we will attend to that. So just to round up on that, objectives should be functional to the society as well as the learner, and then it should be appropriate. We're going to look at the criteria for selection of content and then subject matter. That is the next thing we're going to look at. Criteria for the Okay, so we have a caller on the line. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
This is Pascal from Podcast Science.
Pascal, yeah.
Yes, please, Pascal. I want to ask a question with regards to the specifics of the the objectives.
Great, let's go.
For instance, you are teaching basic 4. And probably you are taking them on a topic like matter.
Sure.
Then at the end of the lesson, you state an objective like the students should be able to explain and state the 3 stages of matter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, unless it state the stages of matter. I don't know whether this one is achievable or not, or is it cumbersome for the child at that particular level.
A child at basic 3 to state. Let me hear you very well. A child at basic 3, basic 4.
Basic 4.
To be able to explain.
Matter. The stages of state.
Okay, so
the stages of matter.
Okay, sure. We will attend to that. Well noted. I think let's respond to the questions they've raised, then we continue. So the first caller had something around feasibility that can he give it to us as an assignment? Please reduce the volume. Lower the volume of your radio set. It is giving us feedback.
Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, Aziba again.
Sorry?
I said Aziba again, Hypers Department.
Hypers, great, let's go.
Yeah, concerning the achievement of our objectives.
Sure.
It goes with a lot of factors. And assuming that the environment and if there's no teaching and learning materials, even from schools, you go there and even cupboard to even go on it is a problem. And at the end, your objective is not able to achieve. Who will that be put on?
All right, well noted. So to take it from there, Steve, can you talk about those issues of resources are not there? Let's round everything up.
I will select a few of the questions and then you take the rest.
Okay.
One thing our students have to understand is that as for objectives, teachers are allowed to stay their own.
Yeah, hello, sir.
We have another caller on the line. Yeah, hello, dear caller. Name on your department.
Hypers Department.
Your name again?
My name is Abia Kwesi Enoch, Hypers Department. Please, based on my objectives to be achieved as a teacher, let's assume I'm having 10 pupils in my class. Then after my lesson delivery, I have assigned them with an assignment, and out of the 10, 6 had, let me say, 4 out of 5 being in the total mark, and then the rest 4 in the class had below that. So without performance from the pupils, is my objective or were my objectives achieved or not?
Okay, well noted. Let's quickly end up before we continue.
All right, so our listeners have to understand that teachers have every free will to select or to formulate their own objectives. Objectives are not imposed or superimposed on teachers. And so if I am going to a school, the resources are not there. I have to look at the resources that are available and formulate objectives that would support the achievement of these I have to state objectives that can be achieved by the support of the resources that are available. So we shouldn't make it look like, as for objectives, they are cast in stones, and for that matter, teachers have to achieve them based on the curriculum that has been given to them. The second one has to do with the fact that what are resources? Oh, the resources are not there. The resources are not there. What are resources? You are going to teach a topic like sanitation problems in Ghana. There are, in your community, there are a lot of the school. So what resources again are you waiting for?
Sure.
Sometimes we don't even make the effort to look for the resources.
It's true.
That is one side. I don't know whether you can take one of the questions for me again.
Yeah. On the issue of feasibility. So he said it's not there. Should he give it to them as assignment?
No. You have stated that by the end of the lesson, the child should be able to name the 16 regions in Ghana and identify their capitals. It means that is the target for that 2 hours.
Sure.
The moment you take it outside, it means that day you did not achieve your objective. The last person was on
turn on matter, and then we had Raymond who was talking about Tyler's model.
We have done with that. We will treat that face to face.
Yeah. Okay, so I think basically that is all. There was one on matter. He said if the students in basic 4, they should be able to.
Yes, and 4 of them has gotten assuming 5/5.
Who is to blame? His question is on the blame. And not
No.
the fact that.
The fact is that he should blame himself as a teacher. You have stated that by the end of the lesson, the child or the student should be able. You have stated your average age. You have stated your number. The child, so every child is paramount in the classroom.
Sure.
We don't say, oh, by virtue of the fact that these 2 boys have understood the lesson, we move on. No, that is the mistake sometimes we teachers make when we are teaching. We set objectives and every learner should be a target.
Okay, so yeah, hello, dear caller, your name and your department.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening, please. Can you tell us your name and your department?
Yeah, please.
Okay, we missed our caller. That is it. Our students need to understand that. That is why we present by the end of the lesson, the learner and not learners. Yeah, hello, dear caller. This is Radio WINNEBA.
This Alfred. Oh yeah.
Alfred. Yeah, let's go.
On utility, I want to know whether if you develop a curriculum to solve a problem, and the problem has not solved by the end of the tenure of a certain time, like 5 years time, you have developed a curriculum to solve a problem of schooling. Let's take it for instance. The 5 years time has elapsed. The student has not the all has not stopped. Has he achieved your objectives or not?
All right, so if I heard you very well, you want to find out if you have the curriculum is meant to solve the needs of society, and let's having gone through the curriculum for let's say 2 or 3 years, the problems still persist. Has that curriculum helped? Is that what you wanted to us to help you on? To help you with? Sorry. Okay, so we missing. If that is the point, societal needs are dynamic. So the fact that we have another caller on the line. Hello, caller. Please, can you position yourself well?
Hello.
Yeah. Your name and your department.
This is Pascal from Political Science.
Pascal again.
Yes, my question wasn't answered, but I just want to. The difficulty some of the teachers face in their various schools is that some of the heads you pick a syllabus, and at times the syllabus is general, it's not specific in terms of the objectives.
Sure.
So at times you ask the classroom manager, you try stating it in a specific way. For instance, using numbers, maybe 1, 2, that's the objective that you are stating. Then you take your lesson book to the head teacher. Then he tries to ask you why you have not put the reference numbers. And is that what is stated in the syllabus?
Pascal, the reference numbers of what?
I mean, like your objectives. When you take every objective, there's a number.
Sure.
That's what I'm referring to.
And so what is the problem actually?
The problem is that they are only trying to say that you should just take what is on the syllabus.
You should just take what is in the syllabus.
Yes, like the general objectives. But at times some of the general objectives are not achievable. So you try to.
Yeah, Pascal. The point is that that is why we earlier looked at the components of the curriculum. So we identified the aims, the goals, and objectives. So every curriculum of any school subject, we have the general aims and then the specific instructional objectives. And so this is the accumulation of the achievement of the various specific instructional objectives that leads to the attainment of the general aims.
Exactly.
You get it?
Yes.
It is just a breakdown, and so you could have a general aim which can span for a general aim or goal which can span for years.
Yes,
You get the point. And so you can achieve an aim within a 2-period instructional session. That is the point.
Yes, yes.
So if whoever is requesting you to put the general aims there, that is why you are also receiving some training. So in a nice way, we try to slash it out. But we won't sit here and say that go and state general aims in your lesson notebooks. It is not possible to achieve an aim, aim, within a period of instruction.
Like 30 minutes,
exactly.
35 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sure.
But my question hasn't been answered. It was hard to do with like you are teaching basic 4.
Okay.
Like for instance, you are teaching them matter.
Okay.
Then you, by the end of the lesson, you know the child should be able to explain and state the stages of matter.
Okay, so let me take it point by point. They should be able to state and explain. You are teaching basic 3. You know the average age, basic 4 or 5, whichever.
Yeah.
You know the average age of the students in your class. You considered the criterion of appropriateness. This objective you have stated, is it appropriate to the developmental level of the learner, the learner's cognitive developmental state, the learner's physical, emotional, psychological, mental fitness? Is it appropriate? That is the question. So if you know the average age of the students in your class and you feel that at their age they should be able to explain 3 states of matter of everything, you know the students and their background. You get it? So in a different school, a teacher could ask them to be able to state before, probably in subsequent lessons they require them to explain. You could go to a different school. That is why we went through curriculum terminologies, that the actual curriculum, what you see people doing in a different school. It could be that due to one reason or the other, all other things being equal, a pupil in basic 3 could explain that. You get it? So it is up to you to look at the developmental level of your learners and craft objectives that you can achieve for them. That is why their age, their psychological, their emotional, their social, and everything is important. So I think that if you still have questions concerning this, when we meet during the face-to-face, we will address it then. But thank you for your time. Sure. Stay tuned. All right. So those who just joined us, we are having a lecture on the criteria for the selection of the components of the curriculum, precisely the objectives and then the subject matter. We're going to begin with the subject matter. Do we have a caller? Dear caller, your name and your department. Hello. Please, can you lower the volume of your radio set? You're giving us feedback which is dangerous to our health.
I'm down.
Yeah.
I'm down.
You are what? Please position yourself well. Okay, we missed him. We missed that caller. I think that we should look at the criterion for the selection of. That is why this is a tutorial. So even if you're not able to cover all of them,
yes, I think.
So let's look at content. At least they should be familiar with the fact that content is of 2 types: the formal, the informal. I think they are familiar with that. So the formal content. We have a caller on the line.
Good morning. Good evening, madam.
Good evening.
Please, APAU Emmanuel, Hyper Department.
Emmanuel, let's go.
Madam, we were talking about the objectives should be feasible.
Sure.
Now, that was how achievable the objective is. So, for instance, if I've stated in my objective that at the end of my lesson, students should be able to tell or know good behaviors, and at the end of the lesson, I give exercise, and they were able to write them to me. But when they went to the house, they were acting in a different way. So have I achieved my objective being feasible?
Okay, hold on while I address that. You see, the point is that the first place, the example of the objective you even gave was out of place. They should be able to know. So we don't know what you expected them to know. So whatever they are exhibiting in their communities, in their homes, is what you taught them.
Madam, it was like no good behaviors.
To know good behaviors. Okay,
And then
and so yeah, still you are not being specific over here. To know good, what are the good behaviors? Which kinds of good? What do you consider as good?
okay, madam, like good morals.
Okay,
Good
Emmanuel. Emmanuel.
Madam.
Thanks for calling. All right. So we were on the fact that content is of two types: the formal content as well as the informal content, and we need a blend of these two in the teaching of the subject matter. And so let's look at the criterion itself. So criterion of significance. Hello, dear caller, can you lower the volume of your radio set?
Okay, madam.
Great. Let's go. Your name and your department.
My name is Tabitha Brefa from the Home Economics Department.
Tabitha, yeah, Home Economics. Yeah,
yes, please.
Let's go.
Please, I just want to ask, when teachers said objectives which are above the student level and at the end they are not met, what does it mean?
When the objectives are above the level of the students?
Yeah, even though the teachers know what the students are capable of doing.
Okay, so what does it mean?
Yes.
Is that your question? What does it mean? Yeah, so
yes, please. Like, what do the teachers want to get at the end? You have set an objective which is above the student level, even though you know what the student is capable of doing.
So if you do that, the point is that maybe the person wants to find out the entry behavior of the students before he or she actually begins teaching and learning. And so you may want to find out the level of knowledge that the students have. But first of all, knowing the background of your learners isn't something that we just observe. It's not something that you think that, looking at my students, we just don't look and then make conclusions on that. Okay, so
okay.
If you say you know they can't, there should be a scientific proof that your students can do this at this level. It's not by mere seeing through watching them and what they do that you can.
Oh, okay. Thank you, madam.
You're welcome.
All right, I think before we even start talking about content, there are a few. I want us to conclude on objectives before.
Okay.
And so Eric moved from Hypers with flexibility. I think he later called to.
Okay.
Good evening, sir and madam. The study of EDCR 111 has actually exposed us to so many values, principles, and ethics of the teaching profession. As trainees and teachers to be, we really have to take whatever we are learning seriously and implement them so that aims and rationale of the new curriculum will be achieved. Abi Shadrach, Hypers.
Great.
Good evening, dear lecturers. Please, I'm Dan Kwajo Jampo from Hypers Department. My question is about the feasibility criteria and the objective. From the explanation, I learned that feasibility comprises time, availability of teaching learning material, competency on the part of the teacher, and even the learner's age. The question is about the learner's age. In some classrooms, the difference of ages between learners are huge. So with this situation, how are you going to achieve your objectives? While learner's age is a factor, and so that is why you write your average age. You so find the average.
Yeah.
Hello and good evening. I'm Isaac Etonameje, Political Science Department. To be honest, I'm so much impressed with how you organize this particular radio lecture. Thus, making it an interaction between two wonderful lecturers teaching the same course. It makes it so interesting as though we were in a face-to-face interaction, and it's devoid of boredom actually. However, my question is on the basis of knowing whether my objective has been achieved or not. Are there a specific number of students who should really meet the objectives to confirm that my objectives have been achieved? For example, in my objective, I said by the end of the lesson, the students will be able to write complex sentences. How many? So what happens if? So this type of objective is even null and void.
Yeah, we said the students, personalize it. So you are teaching for all of them. It's not about majority.
Yes.
The student.
Yes.
Definite article.
Yes. Hello, sir and madam. Please, I'm Rebecca Anale Abe, and have been with you since day one. And at times, me not contributing here is that my questions are always being asked by other students before me, and I get my answers too. That's why. But I'm always here with you people, and you are doing so great. here. I always compare my face-to-face lecture with yours, and you are really helping us because I get more understanding about after my face-to-face lecture. Thank you. I'm from the Home Economics Department. Good evening, Madam. I'm Bintim Mawon Sani from Political Science Department. I want to ask if a teacher plans to teach at least 2 topics in a day, but by the end of the class, students understand only 1 topic. Does that mean the teacher has achieved his objective? No, the teacher hasn't achieved the objective. If you design a school curriculum to curb a problem and the problem exacerbated after the specific time, like P1, and the topic is very difficult for the understanding of the P1 people, and teachers normally don't teach those topics, how do I classify this? That I don't really get the question very well. And so thank you very much for contributing to the discussion. I think we will start with the criteria for selecting the content. And it's always good we start with validity.
Validity. Okay.
Yes. And so validity.
Okay, so the criterion of validity, as far as content selection is concerned, we are looking at that knowledge, that principle, that information that is so relevant, that is accurate, that is true, and that is current. It is also important. So what we are going to teach the students, whether it's about separation of mixtures, matter, like some of them were mentioning, ask yourself, this knowledge I'm going to teach, what I want the students to learn, the objective I want to achieve, is it valid? Is it important? Is it accurate? Is it that is so current in the area? And so with this, it is important that we update our knowledge on the various topics we are teaching so that we become familiar with emerging trends in the area. Unless, of course, they are so factual that you can't do anything about it. But apart from that, for instance, gone were the days when we had 10 regions in Ghana. If you go to the classroom today and you keep teaching the children that we have 10 regions in Ghana, you could realize that the topic you are teaching is accurate, but it is not current. And so when that happens, that the criterion of validity hasn't been satisfied because the knowledge needs to be current.
And so that is why our students have to understand that knowledge expires in a matter of days. Knowledge expires in a matter of days. So don't think that as for you, the very day you graduate from here, that'll be the last time you pick a book. The world is changing so fast that I know that, and I pray that soon students, even at the senior high school, are allowed to use mobile phones. You'll be teaching and the students will be googling to find out whether whatever you are teaching them is current or otherwise. And before you realize, they will say, oh, teacher, where the Ochenonfa, Ochenonsela. Because whatever you teach, they go to their books and they realize that those things were in the curriculum in the 80s. And so teachers have to develop the habit of reading. You don't just say, oh, me, I've completed. So you go on social media, you post your pictures.
Some people complacency, sorry to cut you. Oh, I've been teaching for the past 20 years.
Okay. So
and it's been the same lesson note, the same examples. They are not being novel in any way. So for the past 30 years, it is the same examples, the same lesson note. And okay, we have another caller on the line. Hello, dear caller, your name and your department.
Hello, Madam, good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Please, I'm Dennis from Political Science Department. I'm Dennis from Political Science Department.
Dennis, sure, let's
yes,
go.
Please, my question is that as we are here, you are teaching us to become professional teachers.
Sure.
So I'm asking that at the SHS level, at the every term they give topics that as a teacher you have to complete. So I'm asking that as a professional teacher who want to achieve your objective every lesson that you teach, and you are not able to complete because you want your students to understand what you are teaching them. I'm asking, are you going to be penalized for not completing the topics, please?
So let me take it from the latter part where you ended. The fact that you want your students to understand. So does it mean that those who are able to cover, they don't make their learners understand? Is that the point you are establishing?
That is how
please, madam, like sometimes you make assessments and you realize that your students did not understand what is taught. So maybe as a professional teacher, you want to reteach the topic again. So because of that, you are not able to complete the topics.
That is why some of us did 3-set problem for 3 years in the senior high school. To what extent do you want the students to understand? The target that we set, sometimes it is too beyond the learners. So every day, if you are not careful, you are just repeating your lessons. If you feel you still need time, you can do your extra classes free. Because you want your students to understand. You use an intervention. You will treat a number of, this is just your first course. So we will do other courses where you will learn appropriate strategies that you can use to teach in your classroom, especially in principles and practice of teaching.
But the point too is that here we can't blame the students entirely for not understanding. It could be that the problem may not necessarily be emanating from the point of the student. It could be that the approach, your instructional approach to teaching the topic, is making it difficult for the students to understand.
Especially those of us who want to go and speak better English for the students to know that, yes. So the epistemology and the ontology of government says that.
And you expect them to understand.
They won't understand.
So sometimes check yourself. Examine yourself. My choice of words, the resources, my teaching approach, is it appropriate? Is that where the problem is coming from? We shouldn't always blame the students as not wanting to learn. If their colleagues elsewhere are learning it, how come they can't learn it? Okay, so we have looked at that of validity. So let's look at significance and relevance.
Yeah, so you are given a curriculum. The curriculum comes with aims, goals. When you select a content, the content has to meet the aims and the goals.
Sure.
Beyond that, whatever you teach the learners should be relevant for the society. So if you are going to teach a topic like personal hygiene, ask yourself, the content that I have selected, how would it benefit the learner? And how would it benefit the society?
Sure.
We have to help our learners to understand that utility, relevance, and then significance, they look similar, but there are slight differences.
Sure.
How would it be relevant to the society? Relevance. How would it help to achieve the aims, goals of the curriculum? Significance. How would the learner be able to use the content he's learning today to solve the problems he's encountering now and the problems he's encountering in the future? Utility.
Sure. So that is right on point over there. The issue of significance, relevance, and utility. How important is the knowledge? How is it going to benefit the learner and the society? How would the learner use it, apply it in daily life? That becomes utility. So
good. And I think that is where sometimes we teachers do not help much. You teaching algebra. Everybody knows it's mathematics. But it doesn't mean students cannot apply algebra in their lives.
Right. Sure.
All the things, the trigonometry, the calculus we are doing, it is with us. They are things that occur in our lives every day. But we teachers fail to draw the connection that when you meet Pythagoras theorem, this is how it looks like. So students may sit in the class and in their minds they are thinking Pythagoras theorem is like a mountain somewhere that they have to travel before they can see.
Sure.
Let us always try to link whatever we teach our students to the problems they encounter in their lives.
Sure.
So if we are talking about objectives, students have to understand that first, they even need to set objectives for themselves, not for the students. Before you go to class, what should I be able to achieve by the end of the lesson?
By the end of the day, since you are going to study so many subjects, so by the end of the day,
yes.
So if you make these things practical, they will draw some connection between what you are teaching them and then what is expected of them to the expected learning outcome that they are expected to demonstrate. Okay. Thank you very much. And so we have, I think, the final two criteria to consider. that of interest, and then learnability. But I think the phone lines are still activated to receive more calls and other things. So you can call us on the studio lines to make your contributions, if clarifications, and then ask questions if there are any. You can reach us on 0503 923158 and 0332 320201. The point is that the lecture is on the school curriculum, social change, and national development on the topic criteria for the selection of objectives and then content. We are also live on the various social media platforms, and very soon we'll be crossing over to get some questions and contributions from there. So you can reach us on Facebook at Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM, Twitter at WINNEBA 983 FM, Instagram WINNEBA 98.3 FM, YouTube Radio WINNEBA 98.3 FM, and send us your text messages and WhatsApp on the lines I mentioned earlier. So let's look at interest criterion in the selection of content. Interest criterion in the selection of content.
Okay, so you've been given a curriculum to go and implement. You have to select your content. Yesterday I said it and they said the curriculum comes with content. I said no, you are just given a framework that go and teach matter. By the end of the day, the students should know the types of matter. You have to select the kind of matter you are going to teach. Whether you are going with a bucket, a pan, or whatever, that is your own cup of tea. And so we shouldn't teach lessons as if we have been forced to teach.
Sure.
Learners will not be interested. So the moment you select a content, either as a curriculum developer or as a teacher teaching in the classroom, ask yourself, would the learner be interested in this content?
Sure.
If you are teaching something that learners are not interested in it. So sometimes look at our how students behave when certain teachers are coming.
Sure.
The moment they see the teacher.
Okay, so let's cross over. We have, hello, dear caller. Can you lower the volume of your radio set?
Okay.
Great.
Good evening, madam.
Good evening. Your name and your department.
My name is Immanuel Abuna Samuel. English department.
English?
Yes, English department.
Great. Let's go, Emanuela.
Okay, madam, please, I have the scenario I want to share with you concerning the objective teaching.
Okay.
So, way back in literature, my government teacher was a kind of teacher who, when you teach, you will be sleeping in class.
Okay.
And he doesn't listen to classes. He doesn't listen to any idea for many students. What he says you should do is what you have to do.
Okay.
So I want to ask if he included that sort of thing into his objective, or he has derived his own means of teaching. Because most of my colleagues were not getting what he was actually teaching.
Okay.
That's my question.
Great. Emanuela, thanks for calling. We're going to...
So I think it boils down to the interest we're talking about.
Sure.
That the content that the teacher has selected does not satisfy the principle of the child's interest. So the teacher comes to class to presume that, yes, I am teaching because I have to teach. He did not set the objective that by the end of the lesson, the children should know how to sleep in class. But by virtue of the fact that the content that he selects always does not engineer any kind of interest in the students, they end up sleeping in his class. So teachers would always have to consider the interest. And you can only know the interest of your students when you know your students.
Yeah.
So ask yourself, that is why when we're teaching, the way we teach group A will be different from how we teach group B. Because the interest of group A students will not be the same as the interest of group B students. So the examples we cite in one class, it doesn't run the same way through the same classes. Sure. When you were talking, you were citing scientific examples because you are teaching science. Yeah. I'm teaching political science. So I'm also citing examples from government.
Sure.
It is the same.
Yeah.
you select content based on the interests of your students. So you should know your students first before you even get to the classroom.
Yeah, so I think that just a little to add to that, I think this thing really worried Emanuela. And so interest, we are not saying that the students should tell you what they want to learn. What is the meaning of interest? Okay, we have a hello, dear caller, your name and your department.
Please.
Your name and your department, please. Please position yourself very well. We are struggling to hear you. Yeah.
APAU Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
Hypers department.
Great, Emmanuel. Let's go.
Madam, one of the criteria for selecting the content being validity.
Being what?
Validity.
Validity. Sure, validity.
Madam, when you were in
Emmanuel.
Madam.
Yeah, the question again.
I said like criteria for selecting content.
Yeah.
One of them being validity. The way they told us to mention certain words in the primary school, when you go higher, you see that it changes. And then also, sometimes at primary schools, some like they would tell only say religions in the world, but you grow up and know there are more than that.
Emmanuel, sorry, I'm not to catch you, but you can send us just type your question and then send it to us via a text message, okay, or WhatsApp. We are struggling to hear you from your end.
Okay, madam.
So just send it to us via SMS. All right.
I think the point he was trying to make is that when they were in senior basic school, they were told we have only 3 religions, but now they know we have more than 3. So can we say what they were taught was not valid?
Okay.
And the way they were taught to mention certain words, circumference. When you know very well that the world is circumstance, not circumstance.
Okay.
Yes. So he's just trying to say that they've grown to now realize that those things were not true and they were not accurate.
Okay.
So eventually it still links to the principle of validity.
Okay. If that is the case, then I think that is why we are going through this course. So going out there to the field, we shouldn't be those teachers who recycle the notes word for word, comma for comma, full stop to full stop.
Yes.
So if you keep revising your knowledge on the subject you are teaching, I don't think you'll be facing some of this. Most of these English words, they are just archaic. It doesn't mean it is out of play. But if you go and say it now, it is like, oh, it was it's archaic. It doesn't make it wrong though. So we need to be abreast. With the issue of Emmanuel's thing, issue of interest. You see, what is the meaning of interest? The quality that will attract something. So, I was giving an example that usually you may go to a restaurant. Sometimes the way they garnish the food, present the food to you, you will be salivating before you even wash your hands to begin eating. At the same time, okay, we have a caller. Hello, dear caller, your name and your department.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Madam, this is Abby Shadrach from Hypers.
Shadrach,
department.
I was expecting your call before we actually leave here. Shadrach, you've been one of our consistent callers. Shadrach.
Now, I'm humbled, madam. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're most welcome.
My regards to sir too.
Okay.
Madam, a while ago, you were making a comment on we going out and not going to be those teachers that will recycle the lesson note and all that.
All right. Okay.
Well, I have come to love the course because of how you handle it. Okay. But I think that in as much as we spend much into designing curriculum, the caretakers of education in the country, that's the Ghana Education Service, I think they also have to up their game. Because when you go out there and you are working, when you're on the field, to some circuit supervisors and some officers, it looks like a witch hunting venue. When they come, and even there is something that you want to even introduce. I have personally had the experience where you'll be told that they are not doing that. This is how they used to do it, so you have to go that way. So you realize that
at the end of the day, the whole thing is being recycled, and we are practicing the old things, and we are not moving forward. So mine is just a contribution that in as much as we go to design new curriculums, the supervision and other stuff should also be taken through that same vein, so that we can realize actually what we want to do and then turn Ghana to be a better place. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shadrach, for your call. And I think the general public is listening to us, so who knows, we may take it from there. Thank you for the wonderful contribution.
Thank you.
Okay. So interest that teacher, in terms of, if to some extent the students feel that the curriculum comes with the knowledge, that is why. Hello, dear caller. Can you lower the volume of your radio set, please?
Okay, madam. This is Pascal.
Good evening.
This is Pascal.
Okay, please, your name and your department.
Political science.
Political science, yes. Your name, please.
I said Pascal.
Pascal again, or is it different Pascal? Pascal, let's go.
I just want to battle the point that Shadrach I just made.
Okay.
You know, when it comes to integrated science and lesson plan,
sure,
it differs from other subjects.
Yeah.
I encountered a situation like that with my head, where I was talking about this alignment issue. He was like, they weren't doing it that way, so I should do it the way he has asked me to do it. And I was like, you are the prehistoric based teachers.
Prehistoric teachers.
And we are modern based teachers.
Sure.
So what we are taught at the college might be different from what you were taught. So I thought seriously with her to the extent that we had to, and secret supervisors came and then we had to sort the issue out from that level. But we are times, some of them, I think they are the kind education service should also provide some kind of in-service training or other things for them to keep their capacities. Other than that, we will continue to have these back and forth issues. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for the wonderful contribution. Keep it up, Pascal. Okay, so we are taking the final criterion then.
But I want to conclude on this interesting.
Okay.
Our students should understand that the child's interest alone cannot be a sole criteria.
On its own. Okay.
On its own. So yes, we cannot ignore your interest, but we shouldn't use your interest alone as a basis to select. Certain things must be in the curriculum to satisfy the society and not the learner.
Okay.
Some of them have to satisfy even subject matter specialists, because assuming you have come here to do a program, you have been taught certain things. The moment you go out there, they say they've taken the course out of the school curriculum, meaning whatever you came here to do in the 4 years, you've just wasted your time. So all the topics in the curriculum, they are not geared towards the child's interest. Some may be on the interest, others may not be on the interest. That is why we treat patterns of the school curriculum. Unfortunately, this time is out of the course outline. You go through the 4 patterns and you realize that there are certain courses.
You may end up confusing them. Let's shelve that. I think that.
All right, that's okay.
Platform, then we do it so that they don't get confused.
All right.
Okay, so all in all, I think that sometimes if the knowledge you're going to introduce, you think that it is not interesting, check your pedagogical approaches and make it so interesting. Because I remember with students, general arts background, usually we fear mathematics. Maths is difficult, so that is what we usually hear. But sometimes the way the teachers handle it, you realize that a particular student may begin to develop interest in mathematics based on how the teacher teaches it. So I think that is why we are training ourselves. We shouldn't go and be hard on the students. We can also make a contribution to determine whether students will take interest or will develop interest for the knowledge or the subject or not. So we are taking the final criterion, then we run up the criterion of learnability. We are still talking about content. So the knowledge you're going to teach, is it learnable? That is the point. It will only be learnable when we satisfy the earlier objectives we have already said. Appropriateness. If it is appropriate, then we are looking at it being learnable at the level, at the age of our learners. So this what do we call it, separation of mixtures, this laboratory preparation of whatever, is it learnable at the level of my learners? Political and democracy, is it would they be able to learn it at their level? That is a first question. You have an objective. Look at the class that you are going to teach. Look at the developmental level of your learners, and then ask yourself, at this stage, would they be able to learn it? Once that criterion is satisfied, then it is good to go. The content becomes learnable, hence the criterion of learnability. If you, I don't know whether you have.
But I feel personally that there are so many topics that can be taught at every level. For instance, in the new history curriculum, we say students in basic 1 should know the meaning of history. You know very well that history is the study of records of past events. A child in basic 1 cannot say this. So what do? If the child is able to say, this is a picture of myself last year with my family, it means the child has been able to define history.
Sure.
So we shouldn't go and say, oh, as for this topic, Tyler Wheeler Taba can be taught in basic 1. The students should be able to know the people who develop the models.
Yeah.
That they are Tyler, they are Taba, and they are Wheeler. When we are selecting the content, we have to be flexible as teachers.
Yeah.
Select examples that can be used at the level that it is intended. But like I said earlier, when we go and it's like we want to impress, sometimes I don't know who we want.
Fresh graduate.
Fresh graduate, especially national service.
Okay. Yeah.
You want to impress the teachers, you want to impress the students. So you go to stand there, and the language and the slangs you may use, we all know you speak like myself. We've not gone beyond Togo before. But we go to stand there citing examples and all that, and
that are even irrelevant.
We end up confusing the students.
Yeah. So I think here again, we will be treating the next criteria in the various learning experiences.
Yes,
so
yes.
The issue of the history examples you gave, for instance, provide appropriate learning experiences that will lead to the achievement of those ones. We are here to look at the criteria for the selection of learning experiences. Okay, so we have some few messages from. We have received some messages from WhatsApp.
Some of them have already been dealt with.
Okay.
Good evening, dear lecturers. I'm Naneku Adepa from Political Science Department. We always hear Ghanaian students excelling in academics better when they go outside the country compared to their performance when they are in the country. My question is that, is it the criterion for selecting the curriculum of our country that is so different and therefore makes learning here seems somehow difficult than that of the other countries, or it is the mode of teaching that makes the students not really understand it? Me, I've not traveled before, so I can't take this. Miriam, you have traveled before, so share your experience with us.
Okay, is that all we have now?
Dennis from Political Science, self-sufficiency as a criterion. We won't talk about it. Good evening, please. I'm Wakohine Stephen, Hypers Department. We're really enjoying the discussion. So I think
Shadrach and Pascal, they should prepare. Next week we'll come to the studio with them.
Yes.
So
I have planned about that.
Shadrach and Pascal should prepare. If they are hearing, if they are listening to us, they should. But next week they are coming to the studio with us.
Yes.
The point is that you see this course, it is so elaborative in nature, with the issue of why these students excel elsewhere and not here. We'll be looking at the concluding part of the course, national development. We'll look at what goes on in these developing nations, and then those countries who are called developed, are referred to as developed, and we'll look at the economic differences. Sometimes some of these challenges we are facing, we are here drawing monitor and how do we call it, system units, and using stones as mouse.
Drawing grasshoppers
in teaching in teaching ICT. the internal session of a mama, then you'll be there. The test of practicals, you are doing it. So sometimes this thing, I mean, we are.
But I think that the students have to appreciate this. That for the first time in our educational discourse, we have a curriculum framework.
Sure.
Unlike those days where a few people are selected on the basis of their expertise to just go and think of what we will need to study. Now we have a curriculum. The unfortunate part is that it is too early, so we are still struggling to, change is always difficult.
Of course.
So these places we are talking about, you go to Singapore and Malaysia and Co. They are not even doing standard based now. They are doing project based. Yes. We are now trying to do.
We are in the process.
Yes.
Social change is a process which we would learn.
But they shouldn't think that those places studying there is easy.
Of course.
You have traveled from here.
To whom much is given?
To go and study. When you go there, sometimes when we are hard on you don't understand. They will not be hard on you. They will allow you. Once you don't meet the standards, you are sacked.
They eliminate you from the system.
That's all. Here you can apply for extension. That place, they won't give you scholarship and give you extension. So sometimes, yes, we may think, when you go there, it is easy. The resources are there. So you only need to learn.
We are now struggling with the resources. So I think some of these things they explain why people go there, they excel, and they are here and we don't. Okay, thank you very much. It's been a wonderful session on this radio lecture, the criteria for the selection of the objectives as well as content. In fact, we thank all our callers. Eric, Raymond, Pascal, Fred was there, Emmanuel, Emanuela, Tabitha. We appreciate all of you, those that were not even able to, have not been able to mention. So stay tuned with us. The technical team, we thank you. Myself, Miss MIRIAM OGAH, and then my colleague, Steven, we were here to do you the honors. Till we meet same time next week, is bye-bye.
COVID is real. Protect yourself. Mask up so we can see ourselves alive. Thank you.
Blue Star